empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop Bowl Order. It is prime time Sunday night. Lot to talk about. Bowl prep is about to kick off into full swing this week. The recruiting visits are over. The coaches are off the road. The dead period has begun. The signing day is coming up this week. So now, no more award shows, no more award ceremonies, no more Heisman. All the coaches are on deck, ready to roll. This is a huge week of practice for Ohio State. Getting into Georgia game prep is going to be a big, big week. A lot of development going on. A lot of physical practices, man, because you got roughly 3 weeks to get ready for the Bulldogs. So you kind of get like 2 free bye weeks, and then you got game prep week, the final week. So it is going to be fantastic. So just wanted to thank you guys for joining. We're going to get into this. We got some film we're going to break down. So as always, thank you guys for being a part of BuckeyeScoop.com. If you enjoy this, leave us a like, click subscribe. We just hit a new record for subscriptions to our YouTube channel, and our Buckeye Scoop premium forums are also growing like crazy. Thank you so much. As we march into the Christmas season, it is a fantastic gift. If you know a big Buckeye fan, bring it on. We'd love to have them. Jermaine, thanks for joining us. OHIO. I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight? I gotta take him out of the green room. A little live TV. All right, you're in the green. Now you're on. Now you're green for go. Nevada, go ahead.
Oh, I think this is like the official start of the bowl season. I've been up until now, like there's been some practices and stuff, but it just feels like we're starting to get really cooking now, starting to get into, serious Georgia preparation time. We got other bowl games going. We've finished with Army, Navy, and it's now it's time to get down to some football. So the next 3 weeks are going to be an epic time. I'm really excited. Can't wait to get at it.
Were you surprised Navy fired their head coach who's been synonymous with Navy football for so long?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's one of those things where it's been there for so long. It's for that very reason. It's kind of familiarity breeds contempt, and after a while, I think some of the Navy guys are looking for a little bit of the new blood. I mean, the game, while it was kind of fun to watch, I actually bet the under on that game, and the overtime, going to overtime, cost me the total. But it was historic. It was great. It was pageantry, but it was truly horrible football. And I think Navy needs to be better than, look, Navy used to have, they had Roger Staubach at one time, so they can actually play football, but the brand of football they're playing right now is just not good. So it might not have surprised me as much as it surprised others, but I think they were looking for a reason, and he certainly gave it to them.
Yeah, I think it's just tough to win at the service academies. I mean, they run the triple option. They got to kind of be gimmicky. You're not going to get 320-pound linemen generally. You're going to get guys that are lighter that, you're going to have to cut block. You have a different brand of football. You have to shorten the game, rely on your toughness. You're not going to out-athlete a lot of teams. And they're a tough team to play, man. Nobody wants to play a service academy just because, they're going to cut you every play. There's a huge risk of injury. It takes weeks usually to recover from playing in Navy because you get chopped about 60 times when you're one of the D linemen, and guys don't even want to go into the game because they know their knee could get blown up. That being said, Nevada, the Heisman ceremony was last night. Caleb Williams was minus 2,500 on the betting odds going into the ceremony, so there wasn't much suspense. Were you surprised by anything? The order of Williams, Duggan, Stroud, any of that surprise you at all?
No, I think, and I think that's kind of a shame because I think, I look back to some of the days when the Heisman voting was kind of exciting and maybe it was a little bit of a surprise or you weren't quite sure. I think some of most all the dramas kind of come out of that award. And so, no, it was kind of a ho-hum for me. I was more fixated on the UFC card where I'm going to go completely off topic and let you guys know that I had bet a 12-match parlay and won the first 11, got a majority draw on the last one, so cashed an 11-match ticket last night. So for you bettors out there, you know how good that was, plus over 200 to 1 on that, so that was really good. So Nevada had a good day last night.
That is Dagestan Daddy, Dagestan Poppy, the lead betting analyst for UFC. Tune into the Twitter Spaces. He's on a heater for for you guys that are gambling and want to gamble on anything. UFC is a very interesting thing to gamble on. How did you have the final? It was the final fight of the night. It was a bit controversial. How did you have? Was the person who most people thought won, was that who you had on the final leg of your parlay?
Yeah, we did. Even though that was a close fight. He was upset that that he won clearly run rounds 4 and 5. Outstruck the guy literally like 110-0. Lost 1, 4, and 5. But rounds 1, 2, and 3 were all close. So I've seen worse decisions. Frankly, there was a decision in match 11 with Patty Pimblett that was much worse. But the Patty Pimblett decision was about as bad as some of the decisions on defense in the Michigan Ohio State game. So it was bad. Even though we won, I wanted it to go that way. It was bad. But so you see bad decisions run throughout all sports, and they were certainly on display last night.
Was Patty? Was he the favorite? I know that Portnoy was like ringside with the little Patty wig on. Was he the favorite, or did he get waxed?
Yeah, he was a heavy favorite, but he lost the fight clearly, and it was they just gave it to him. They gave him the fight, and one of the judges gave him all 3 rounds, which was really kind of crazy because I thought you could make a pretty good argument for him having lost all 3 rounds, but hey, money talks, and they're trying to build him up for a big money fight, maybe a fight down the road against McGregor, which is probably the biggest pay-per-view fight of all time. But for you gamblers out there, I'd say fade Patty Pimblett in the future because he's not very good.
Do you think he has the talent to carry it to McGregor if McGregor can ever get back to be anywhere near what he used to be?
No, I think McGregor would kill him. I think McGregor would absolutely kill him.
Do you think we ever see Conor?
Anybody who stays on the feet against McGregor is going to really have a problem. And Patty, yeah, for sure, 100%.
Do you think that Conor ever fights in the UFC again? Can they afford him?
Yeah, for sure. I think he'll fight for sure, guaranteed.
That'd be
of course. Hey, man, it's all that pay-per-view money. So
yeah, I got you. Okay, so we're gonna get into the Heisman ceremony. No surprises at all with Caleb Williams running away with it.
No surprises. Caleb, is look, he was the best player in college football. He certainly was the most dynamic force. He was a guy that really took it to the opposing defenses. He kind of runs the way the offense, the way that I'd really like to see C.J. Stroud run the offense, which is effective passing and just deadly running, and that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're going to need against Georgia. We're going to need every yard. Every yard's going to be valuable. We're going to need them to be a dog against Georgia, and hopefully they've got some of that dialed up for them. And I think we're going to be surprised by C.J. Stroud in the Peach Bowl. I think he's got some tricks up his sleeve, and I think Ryan Day's going to dial up some of that stuff against the Bulldogs, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you see Caleb Williams, he obviously had a fantastic year throwing the ball, but he had 10 rushing touchdowns. And again, I know we talk about it all the time. We say how important it is to run the ball, but my God, that makes a huge difference when you can run for 10. And he had some long ones, some 60-yard touchdown runs, and those are just backbreakers. I mean, you see it in the NFL. You see the mobility of these quarterbacks that can move around in the pocket, and Justin Fields is off this week, but obviously he's the Bears, the Chicago Bears this year, which nobody thinks they have a great line, are likely to set the record for most rushing yards as an offense in the history of the NFL. Even though I know they added a 17th game, but that's so impressive, and a lot of it has to do with what Justin does with his legs. So getting into Peach Bowl prep, Nevada, it's bowl season. It's always kind of a funky time between the Michigan or the Big Ten championship game for about that first week or so when you have coaches that can go on the road, because all of our coaches are out on the road. Keenan Bailey was on the road. He went down and saw Jelani Thurman, try to firm up that commitment after he was named the new tight ends coach, replacing Kevin Wilson. But now, starting this week, it's a dead period. All the coaches are back in the building. You have a full staff. There's no more skeleton practices where you might have some coaches that are on the road and different people are filling into position groups. What are your thoughts now that the full staff is back in the building at the WAC as we begin Georgia prep?
Well, I think the big thing really is, I've been really focused on the defense, and got a really good contact, talks to Knowles a lot, talked to Knowles in the wake of the Michigan defeat, and really talked about how, what they're going to do from this point on. And, I think Michigan really kind of brought out some things that were kind of glaring for Ohio State all year long. I think, Knowles really took that loss hard, really takes a lot of the blame for himself, which, I love accountability. Certainly he didn't, he was not responsible for the game, or he wasn't the guy that lost the game, but he views it that way. But I think he's going to kind of a bottoms up approach on the defense. They're going to start over. I think he felt like they got a little bit too exotic, tried to do a little bit, a few too many things. Needed to try to get it back to be a little bit more basic. They got away from kind of their one word calls on the defense. And I think he was asking the guys that maybe some of the guys were trying to do a little bit too much and trying to make plays where they hadn't really forced a lot of turnovers. They were looking to try to do that, make impact plays in the Michigan game, and it kind of got away from them where they didn't carry out their responsibilities. There were some individual breakdowns. And so I think as a result, Knowles is going to go back to the basics, start from day one, almost like first day of training camp, and build the defense back up from the ground up, for the Georgia game. And I think it's a really smart approach. I think it's really what's necessary. And the thing that I thought was most interesting is that Knowles really believes in this group. He really believes that he's got a top 5 defense. He's got a group that can really shut down the opponent's offense. And I think that they're planning on putting on a show against Georgia. And I think they're going to surprise some people with how well and how effectively they play.
Yeah, I think you got to shorten the rotations. I think that it's kind of a joke how many guys play on defense. I know that you want to keep guys fresh, but in the era of TV timeouts and long half times, and I mean, it's really impossible to get tired playing football in modern college football because these guys, I go to the games live and it's just I literally watch for the little guy who's at the 25-yard line that walks out and he's got the little vest on and he's the TV timeout guy. Every time he walks out, puts his hand up, it's a TV timeout, and it's stunning, but it isn't, because obviously that's what pays the bills is these commercials. And when they're $1 billion TV contracts, these networks are going to try to make all that money back through very expensive commercials. So when you're playing a team like Michigan or whoever at home, there's going to be a TV timeout as frequently as possible. So guys it's literally impossible to get tired. So some of these guys that played in the last few games who made some major mistakes, they don't need to play anymore. They don't need to play against Georgia. That might be harsh, but it just kind of is what it is. And you got to tighten it up. And some of these guys, they're announcing they're going pro already, which I don't love, because I think these guys should focus on playing the next game instead of worrying about their NFL stuff, because nobody really cares about that. But these guys are going to have a tall task because they're playing Georgia. This isn't anywhere near as good of a Georgia team as there was last year. The defense isn't even anywhere close to as good as it was last year, but they're still good. Still probably the best defense in the country, but they lost a lot. They lost the number 1 overall pick. They lost the defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, that won every single major award, consensus All-American, unanimous All-American. They lost 2 fantastic linebackers, including a first-rounder who went to your Packers. Nakobe Dean was a mid-round guy. I mean, they lost some superstars off that defense. So it'll be interesting. I mean, LSU is able to throw the ball. I think that's kind of our secret weapon. And I'm telling you, CJ, if he wants to win this game, he's going to have to run. And I know people hate when we say that, but now's the time. All this bullshit, I'm not going to run the ball, and I'm just going to stand there, and I'm not supposed to be a runner. It's now or never. If you want to go do it, if you want to save yourself for the NFL, that's great. But if you don't figure out how to scramble and move around in the pocket, you're going to get absolutely murdered in the NFL, because I watch it. These guys that can't run, people talk shit about Tom Brady. Go watch what he looked like today against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, he got absolutely annihilated, shell of himself. The guys that can't run are dying in that league because the defensive ends and defensive tackles are too athletic. The O-lines have never been more poorly coached, more poorly developed. And you're going against Myles Garrett's and guys like this, and it's ugly, So if you can't scramble around, even like Deshaun Watson, who didn't have a great game, but he was moving the chains, running the ball. Joe Burrow was running the ball. That was a game that a lot of Ohio folk are watching today. And it's a game changer. Gonna take some questions, man, because I got a great question from a guy. And this is hilarious because I don't think this is a play on you, but Ken Taco Hut. This is a great name. Kirk, as someone who was part of the championship team that backdoored in the finals in 2007, totally agree with that. What does the team need to do to be better prepared than your '07 team? Well, I can answer that. Ken, is there anything you want to say to that question before I take a little jab at that?
No, I mean, look, I thought you guys came out in '07 and I mean, you guys almost took control of that game. We're up 7-0. We're on the thing, getting ready to go up 14-0. So you had that unfortunate procedure penalty, and you guys came out prepared. You guys came out smoking. You guys certainly were not afraid of playing against LSU, and it seemed like confidence was high. I thought it looked like you guys might run them off the field there for a little bit. So hopefully we can come out with a similar type of fire. But I'd love to hear. How confident were you guys going into playing LSU in 2007?
I mean, we were confident. I mean, the biggest thing is, I was on that '06 team against Florida where we just rolled over. I thought that was a lack of focus, a lack of leadership, a lack of a lot of things. And, that next year we weren't nearly as talented. We had Todd Beckman, quarterback, is a great kid, a guy that didn't get drafted, wasn't an NFL guy. The year before we had the Heisman winner, so it was a pretty gross disbursement of talent. And, we had, we didn't have Teddy, we didn't have Gonzo. We still had Pitt, we had Beanie, so we weren't anywhere near as explosive on offense. Our defense was terrorizing. I mean, our defense was number one overall in the nation, so we knew how to play defense. And we wanted to start fast. We ran unbalanced. We had that long Beanie run where I lined up as a inside tackle, Beanie lined up at tight end, and we crushed the left side. Beanie hit the gap, went to the crib. We had a great plan, and the hard part is, like, when you're playing in a game like this, if you aren't just grossly better than them, you have to play a clean game. And we made so many Bush League, terrible, idiotic mistakes that we didn't deserve to win. Like I always talk about, we had 5 personal fouls. 4th and 22, we roughed the punter, which is bullshit. You're never going to win a good game in a national championship versus LSU was better than we were. They had better talent. They had a quarterback that played in the league for 8 years. They had Dorsey, Tyson Jackson. It was in Louisiana. So, all of the variables were slanted their way. But, we came out fighting. But, you can't, we had just dumb penalties, like personal, false start on the 2-yard line when we're about to run it in. We dropped a touchdown. And again, this isn't me just blaming people. I'm just saying this is just what happened. We had a bad fumble where we lost a bunch of yardage on it. And again, like when you're playing a team that's better than you, you just can't do like that. So it's kind of like when you look at our Michigan game. We're taking stupid penalties. We take one of the dumbest penalties in the history of Ohio State on the sideline, the headbutt. That was one of the most selfish, idiotic penalties I've ever seen. We don't execute the fake punt, which was there, and Jim Harbaugh was just like, thank God that they screwed up the execution. We had some really bad defensive pass interference penalties, we did that's kind of that same stuff against LSU. And like when you're playing a great team, and in the Big Ten, don't make any mistake about it. Like Ohio State has to really get up for one game a year, Michigan, because we have our players are so much better than everybody else we play. That really, you just got to kind of roll the helmets out and just play like a B- type game, and you're going to beat every other team in the Big Ten. Michigan's the only one you really got to get ready to go. And that's how Georgia is. We're actually going to see a team with equal talent. And, we played LSU. They were better than we were if you go pound for pound, guy for guy. They were preseason number 1. They slipped up a couple times. They lost it was ridiculous. They lost to Kentucky and they lost to Arkansas. And Arkansas is when they had McFadden and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis, and they were in the Wildcat stuff. But, it's just part of the game. And, like I said, I think that the biggest thing, if I'm Ryan Day, that I'm focusing on is like, dude, you got to get these guys up to a fever pitch, and you got to get them to execute a clean game. That's the thing that when we've lost these games, man, it's just like, just stupid shit. The Florida game obviously got away from us, but you can't count on Ted Ginn breaking his leg on the first play of the game. And people say, well, that wasn't worth 27 points. Well, it's like, if CJ Stroud goes out on the first play of the game and breaks his leg against Georgia, the people are going to be like, oh, well, you lost 41-14 to Georgia. CJ Stroud's not worth 27 points. And I'm like, well, he's our best player on our team. And Ted Ginn in '06 was the best player on our team, went 7th overall in the draft. So by definition, he's the best player on the team. So I don't know. I just think that it comes down to playing a clean game. And you got to get these guys like revved up and ready to go. And it's just, we haven't been able to match Michigan's intensity the last 2 years. We played Utah, who didn't have the cornerbacks to run with Jackson Smith and Jigba, thank God, or else they probably would have beat us too. And then, we're playing Georgia, and it's down in Georgia, it's in Atlanta. Nobody in the universe is going to pick Ohio State to win, except for the guys that work for Buckeye Scoop. So it's kind of like one of those fun situations where you kind of like being the dog. You kind of like you're going into hell, basically. You're going into Georgia. You're going into the Atlanta Dome where those guys play 2-3. They play the SEC title game there every year, so they're familiar with the place. It's like a home field for them, and we've never played there before. So we got to really be on it, man. And these guys got to be excited to go, and they can't be worrying about what they're going to do for their draft combine prep and what they're going to do with their agent after the game and all that bullshit. Like, they got to lock in on the game. So, Nevada, you got any rebuttal to that? That was a long-winded answer, but that was a great question. I appreciate that.
No, there's no real rebuttal to that. I think, for Ohio State, this is really where coaching matters. And that's why, we talk about Urban Meyer and how great Urban Meyer was. I mean, go look at Urban Meyer's record in these big games, the rivalry games, the bowl games. I mean, it was something ridiculous. It was like 24-3 or something like that. I mean, he just had the innate ability to know how to tap into his team psyche, get them back from losses, keep them focused after wins, get them up for these big games, and have them playing at a fever pitch. And that's what we're going to find out about Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day did it in 2020. I mean, he put on a show in 2020 against Clemson, and that was a virtuoso performance. The question is now, can they come off a loss to Michigan? Can they put Humpty Dumpty back together again? And can they come out and play at a high level and execute at a high level against a very good but not unbeatable Georgia team? So I'm as excited to find out about Ryan Day as I am about the team, because look, coaching is determinative of success at the college level. And so if you play bad, it's on the coach. If you play well, that's a credit to the coach. So I think this game is as much an indictment and a reflection of Ryan Day as it is anything else. And I really think that they're going to rise to the occasion and outperform. I think Ohio State, they haven't won every time as an underdog, but they've just about every time not every time, but probably 80% of the time they've outperformed expectations as an underdog over the past 3 decades. And I think they'll do it again on December 31st.
Yeah, I got a super chat. David Greenshell, appreciate you, my man. Nevada, what makes you convinced the pass defense is better? Well, do you want me to pull up the film clip, Nevada, and we can talk through it?
Let's go for it.
All right, well, we're going to go for it. So, and again, this isn't meant to slight anybody or whatever, even though it's going to look like that. But, this is our second touchdown we gave up versus Michigan. It's Cam Martinez. And again, like, this isn't an indictment, but, I think you got to shorten the rotation. I don't think you need to be playing the backups this early in the game. And Cam is a backup, and, they run this route here, and it's just like, they switch off the combination, Denzel and Cam do. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, when you're a backup, you're usually a backup for a reason, and he gets twisted around here. They leave him on an island, obviously not a coverage guy. And, I mean, that's just, you got to know what your guys can do and what they can't do. And if a guy is that tight in coverage in terms of his hips and he gets twisted around like that, and you give up a bomb like this just takes the air out of the balloon. And again, it is what it is. I mean, here's the thing about football. The great thing about football is you are what your film says you are. So, and yeah, people say we were close, 5 plays for 350 yards or whatever it was, but it's like, it was just these little plays where it's like, we got everything defended, everything's fine. And then one guy who probably shouldn't have been in the game just gets roasted. And I mean, I think you got to shorten it up. You got to keep Lathan in there. And again, our guys played as bad as I've seen them play in 2 years in the back end. I mean, it was really bad. Nevada, you got anything else on this before I turn this off so I don't?
Nah, you can turn it off because I'm done with that. But
okay.
No, I think the reality of a play like that, you look at a play like that and you kind of go, schematically, what's wrong with the scheme? I mean, you have a guy he's covered, he's accounted for. What you're not accounting for is that your safety is just going to literally let the guy go and, be open by 20 yards and go for a touchdown. So it's hard for me to be upset with Knowles, other than to the point of your point was, which is, look, this is not AYSO soccer and everybody plays. At this point in time, and this point in the year, you've got to shorten the rotations, and if guys haven't proven to you that they can play and that they can play at the highest level, then they can't be out there. And that was a situation where you have a kid who's a great kid, nice kid, terrific kid, but probably shouldn't have been put in that spot in that situation. Cost us a big touchdown. But again, we came right back, scored, had the lead at the halftime. So, certainly didn't cost us the game. But there wasn't anything wrong with the play call. It was just poor execution. I don't really know what else to say about that.
Yeah, and appreciate that, David. And again, it's we'll go to one more. We talk about it, and this is just something where we ran this ultra exotic blitz. This is the first touchdown we give for the year. We run a double safety blitz, which again, that is as insane exotic as you can get, and it's this close to being a great call. But the problem is it isn't, because we don't get home. So and the other problem is like when you look at our coverage, we're playing this rat where, if they do run a slant, they drop Jack Sawyer here. They don't. They go up here, catches it, and then we miss the tackle, and then Jack Sawyer's got to get there. But again, this is a guy doesn't make a play, and again, I don't know if it's because our guys are tight, if our guys don't know how to break down. I don't know, but and then Jack is put in a terrible situation because he's a 265-pound defensive end, and he's got to make a play, 25 yards down the field versus a receiver, and that's not fair. I mean, in a perfect world, if you could do this over again, make Jack the stand-up guy here, make this Seal Chambers, and Seal could get there. Seal's much quicker than Jack is. But another problem is if this guy is in the first read, if this guy, the slot guy, is the first read, like, watch Tanner here. Tanner just falls down. So, I mean, again, like, the play looks great, but I mean, get the right cleats on or whatever it is, or learn how to backpedal and flip your hips. Cause after he falls down, he doesn't get tripped. He literally takes one pedal and he falls down. So, I mean, he is wide ass open in the middle of the field. And then, he's a contested catch where we miss a tackle, but like literally, I mean, there's nobody within 20 yards of the slot guy. So, it's funny when I was watching this live and all of a sudden you see the slot guy just come out of nowhere and there's nobody around him. You're like, what's going on? So, again, like, you just gotta, it's just reevaluating, and maybe you felt like those guys could make those plays. And I'm sure Jim Knowles did, or else he wanted to dial this up. I mean, he's been coaching for 40 years and he makes $2 million, but I mean, that's just part of the gig. Nevada, how are you feeling after that one? I'd show that one too. I don't know why.
Well, no, I don't think we'll make those same mistakes against Georgetown. We'll see. Maybe we'll make the same mistakes again. I think we're going to go back to look, you learn this in day one of football, which is if you're running the double safety blitz, then I'm not quite sure why you'd be playing bail coverage on the outside, because the guys are going to get home. So I would think you'd be playing press man and you'd be right next to the guy, because you know that your guys are going to get home. The throw's going to be fast. It's not going to be, a throw. If he's able to escape the pressure and make the throw down the field, then that's a different problem. But you just can't give it up the way that they did. I don't think they'll give it up the way that they did. I think that it was just a series of unfortunate events against Michigan, and you get ahead, Stetson Bennett, put some pressure on him, make him try to beat you. I mean, think about Georgia. Georgia doesn't have that elite running back. They're not going to have that Nick Chubb that's going to come running out there, or the big wide receivers. I think that they've got some really good players in there, but their best players are on defense. I think there's some of the guys on offense that they have we can play with. So do your job, simplify things, and I think we'll have a much better result on December 31st.
Oh, I totally agree. I don't think that this is anywhere near. There's no George Pickens. There's no James Cook. I think we've got a real chance just because I don't think that they've got the weapons that they had last year. Their defense isn't even close to what it was last year. I mean, I watched film of last year. I watched the SEC championship and the national championship against Bama, and it's just remarkable how much talent they have because, their best player this year is 88, Jalen Carter, he's their three technique. But, when you put him next to Jordan Davis last year, you're like, oh my God. And then you got Trayvon Walker, who's the D end. They went to Jacksonville.
Kirk, they had Wyatt, who the Packers took in the first round as well, the other defensive lineman. That was another first round pick on defense. So it was they had multiple first round picks on the defensive line last year.
Yeah. It is it's something else. I got another film. You're gonna love this one. So I'm gonna throw this up just for the hell of it. This isn't in the film room, but this is the super counter that TCU runs. And I know everybody hates it. We love how much we love running quarterbacks, but watch this. So you snap it and it gets a little blurry here. So you get double puller to the top and you snap it to the running back leads. And there isn't a soul there until, and that's what I love. You just slide. Double puller to the top, running back lead. So basically by the end of it, you have a puller and a running back up to the safety. And you just slide. Nevada, this is the kind of stuff I wish we did. I know we'll never do this because CJ, he's not a running back, but like that is so hard to defend coming back the other way. I don't know why. I saw this on Twitter and I'm just like, oh my God, look at this.
No, it's one of those things where, we're going to have to dial some of that stuff up. I mean, even in the NFL, they're dialing up these design quarterback runs. I think we're going to have to dial up some of that stuff for Stroud, just to keep him honest. Again, it's not a feature of the offense, but that the Georgia defense is scheming. When they're sitting in the rooms, what they're saying is, hey guys, just so you know, you don't worry about Stroud. Don't worry about him running. Just don't even account for him. So just don't even get the second thought. So if we can inject that doubt and kind of make some plays with that, maybe early in the game, maybe it provides that little bit of hesitation that we're looking for, and some of that little advantage that you need to kind of get some of those big guys to just have that momentary doubt that can be the difference between a big play and a tackle for loss. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how they do that. They run some of that early just to kind of set the tone with CJ Stroud. I know we did that with Haskins at a big time in 2018. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see it this year in 2022.
I'd love it. Jermaine Williams, this is a fantastic question. Again, appreciate all you guys joining us on Sunday night. A lot of NFL football today, a lot of stuff to digest. Big week on the scoop, signing days this week, so we'll have full coverage on that. Jermaine Williams, this is a great question. He asked me, but I'm going to ask you first. Nevada, who are the young players that can play a role in an Ohio State victory versus Georgia? It's a great question.
Well, we've talked about Jaden Ballard on offense, who's one of my guys, and Sonny Styles is another guy that, I think that, certainly could play a role. I think I look for some, maybe some special teams players and maybe somebody to make a big play, maybe a Kai Stokes or a CJ Hicks or a Joe Royer or somebody to kind of make a big special teams play, or one of those, special teams is something that, we haven't really seen a lot. Like I said, we had that fake punt that they dialed up against Michigan that almost was a great play, almost a legendary play at Ohio State. It was not to be. Would not surprise me at all to see Ohio State try to, some things just to kind of send that message that we're playing fast and loose. And when you have special teams plays, you have potential big plays, whether it be fake punts, block kicks, reverses on kickoff returns. You might see some of those young guys come out of nowhere and make a play. And, look, Chris Olave came from almost obscurity to having a big game against Michigan. I think you could see a similar thing this year in the bowl prep. But I'm gonna wait for a few more practices in the bowl prep to see who's really flashing, see even those young wide receivers are stepping up other than Ballard. But Jaden's definitely my guy. Gun to my head right now. I mentioned him before, but he's a guy that's really starting to come on right now. And he's a guy that I think could play a role.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need him. I think we're gonna need Jordan Hancock. We're gonna need some of these young DBs to step up and play. I mean, we got to cover better. Thankfully, Georgia isn't. Yeah, I mean, Stetson Bennett surprisingly has great throwing numbers. I mean, his are on par with CJ Stroud's, which nobody would ever guess because you don't really get the hype. And plus, he just doesn't have the name brand receivers that we do with Marvin and Emeka. But yeah, some young guys that I look to step up. I mean, God, the guy I'd love to see step up is Dallin Hayden. Dallin Hayden was so good against Maryland, and then they just put him in the mothballs against Michigan, which was as perplexing of a call as I've seen. Who knows how healthy mine will be, or Trey, or what their levels will be to want to get out and go compete and play. But Dallin Hayden ran hard when he got the rock against Maryland. I'd feed him and feed him and feed him. I mean, these guys are, they're fighting for touches. They're fighting to be the next 3-and-out running back, first round pick, Ezekiel Elliott type, and let Dallin eat. Because again, I think these guys got 3 weeks to get better, and it's just interesting because Jackson Smith and Jigba said he just started rehab last week, which I don't know what he's been doing for the last 3 months, but hopefully these other guys will rehab a little bit harder than that. But I think Dallin would be a guy that I'd love to see get rolling a little bit. God, I still don't understand the usage of Sonny Styles. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Again, when we played Wisconsin early in the season, he was in the 4th play of the game. Literally short yardage situation, takes on the fullback head on. They run an ISO right at him, and he kills their fullback. And I was like, all right, this kid's not scared. He's ready to take off. And then he just went back to watching. So I don't know. And again, that's one of those things where you're only going to have that kid for 2 more years. He's a 3-and-out kid. It's already known throughout the Woody Hayes, he's a 3-and-out kid. So you better start using him now. And I know he's more athletic than some of the guys that are playing, and I don't think he's scared. But you gotta feed the beast. And sometimes those young guys those puppies are going to make some mistakes. But man, he's got the athleticism, and he could be a guy that's going to be the focal point of the defense next year. So I'd love to see Sonny get some more burn. Everyone's worried about the tight ends. Nevada, have you ever seen a tight end room like what Georgia has right now with Bowers, Washington? I mean, they've got some monsters at tight end.
Yeah, they do. But, look, if you're telling me that we're going to go up against a team and they've got like great running backs, or heaven forbid, they've got great wide receivers, or they've got great, tight ends, look, let's play the tight ends. I think that plays to our strength. I think, our best position defensively is our linebackers. And the guys that are going to have primary responsibility for coverage on those guys is going to be our linebackers. I think we got some linebackers that can run. I think we got like Cody Simon that can cover and still play in the box as well. So I think I'm not saying that's an advantage for Ohio State, but you got to pick your poison at this time of year because you're not playing any bad teams. Arkansas State's not going to walk through that door on December 31st, and you have to play against somebody who's really good like Georgia. I mean, tight ends, I think that's the best possible matchup for us, and I think it's one that we can at least maybe get a stalemate.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to be seeing the best O-line we've seen. I think that Georgia's better than Michigan on the offensive line, which is stunning. They're the final 2 for the Joe Moore Award for the O-line of the year. It'll be it's going to be really interesting. Nevada, as we we're going to have a ton of updates on bowl prep. I mean, from when I was a player, bowl prep, if you're a young player who didn't play this year, a guy that redshirted this year, this is the time when you make your move into spring ball to move up the depth chart and be a second teamer or even a first teamer. If you're a guy that hasn't played at all and you want to be a first team tackle, first team guard, first team center, whatever, now's when you make your move. I mean, there's a lot of scrimmaging. If you're a young guy and they've got all this extra time during the winter, they're going to scrimmage you to death. And it's like games. Like every day is like a game for the young guys. It's physical. The practice that they're very physical. They should be physical because you got to evaluate the bottom of the roster, man. I mean, with the way the transfer portal is and the way kids are taking off, and I'm sure we'll have more kids under the portal after the year. You got to see what you got. And some of these guys that are in their second and third years, especially these young linemen, they better get cranking, or else you got to go start digging around the portal. Nevada, we had another. Here's another super chat. I'm gonna go here. Georgia fan here. This is great. A Georgia fan gave us a super chat. What in the world? Keith Stevens, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the Southern hospitality. Georgia fan here. OSU has elite skill guys, but do you think they can match Georgia's physicality? I don't really hear anybody talking about Ohio State hitting folks in the mouth. Love the content. Nevada, can we match Georgia's physicality?
Can we?
Or
Sure.
will we?
Yeah, sure.
We fucking better.
have we up until now? No, we haven't. But I think it really comes down to the game plan. And I think when you play a team as physical and as athletic as Georgia, you've got to use that athleticism, you've got to use that aggression against them, and you've got to be clever in terms of how you do it because I think you can influence those players, with your draws, with your reverses, with your play action, with your quarterback keeps, with your unbalanced lines, with running stuff that they haven't seen before. Defensively, you're going to have to confound Stetson. Who Stetson Bennett, he's a veteran guy. I saw a stat where they said that Stetson Bennett and Lamar Jackson were born in the same year, despite the fact that Lamar Jackson's been in the NFL for 5 years or whatever it is. So some ridiculous things. So he's a clever guy, but can we match their physicality? I'm not sure that's our best path to success, but we're going to have to play a physical game. We're going to have to play a smart game, and most importantly, Ryan, we're going to have to play a game where we're loose and unafraid, and that's going to mean using all 4 downs. I've said this before, but you got to use all 4 downs offensively. You know how much that I hate when you're playing those teams that have nothing to lose and are going against you, and they're going for it on 4th down, and they're onside kicking and going after the punter, and they're trying to do everything because you're like, man, what are these guys doing? Don't they know that they're supposed to punt now? And I think that's the type of game Ohio State's got to play. They've got to play this game like they've got nothing to lose, like the world's against them, like nobody's picking them to win, because that's the way that it is. And I think that's a good spot for Ohio State. That's the best possible way you can motivate a team like Ohio State coming off a loss against Michigan. Nobody gives you a chance against the big bad Georgia, because Georgia's a great football team, but they're not one of the all-time greats. They're a great football team for 2022, but this is a down year for college football. So if there ever was a year to get them, this is the year. So we'll see on December 31st, but we're gonna have to play a really good game to it and stay in it early. Don't get run off the field in the first quarter. Stay in it early and get the game to the second half.
I think that is so critical. And again, I know that there's no national championships for the first quarter because we're beating LSU 10-0 and we couldn't sustain it. But we didn't have CJ Stroud, we didn't have Marvin Harrison, we didn't have Emeka. Frankly, I think Paris and Dewan are probably better than Alex and I were. We'll see. Alex had a fantastic NFL career. I think PJ and Dewan are gonna. I think PJ will probably be a top 15 pick. Dewan probably. Depends on how he tests. I mean, he's just such a different cat because he's 6'8", 350, so he's not going to fit every scheme. And 350 might be light. He might be about 380 right now. But he's, it's just, we need our guys in the interior to play their best game. We need Matt Jones to be healthy. We need these guys. If Matt Jones wants to make a lot of money, dude, Jalen Carter's going to be right in his grill all day. And that guy's probably the best player in the country this year. Could be, I don't think he'll be the number 1 overall pick because Houston's going to be picking. They'll probably take Bryce Young from Bama at quarterback. But it's, the physicality is something that we've lacked because really the only team that's super physical that we see on the schedule is Michigan. In the last 2 years, they've kicked our asses. So, I think that we need to get back to the grind and make ourselves physical again. And, I think it starts at the top. You got to get back to being a physical program. I mean, there's one team that punches us in the mouth every year, and they've beaten us the last 2 times. I think Georgia is an extremely physical outfit. I think that's kind of their MO. But I don't think they're anywhere near as good as they were last year. I think they're fantastic. They're still the number 1 team in the country. But, compared to last year, I really thought this was Ryan Day's year to win a national title because there's no 2019 LSU team. There's no 2020 Alabama team. There's no 2021 Georgia team. I felt like the top of the college football landscape was pretty weak. There wasn't that monster juggernaut. I mean, I guess Georgia is kind of that, but this isn't like the A++ Georgia that last year's team was defensively. So I don't know. And again, that LSU team in 19 with Burrow and Chase and Jefferson, that was a rare team. 2020 when we played Bama, they obviously had, they had the fantastic wide receivers, Devontae Smith. They had Waddle, Najee Harris. They had the best line in the country. A lot of really good NFL guys on the defense. So I don't know. It's this is the year. And again, I think that as weird as it is, and this will be stupid, but if you got to make lemonade out of lemons, getting Georgia first, I think, is a huge deal because we have 3 weeks to prep for those guys. We've never played them. We haven't played them in 30 years, so there's no cross comparison. I don't even know if anyone on our coaching staff has gone against Georgia. I'm trying to scan through my head right now to think of anybody that might have, like as a full-time coach or coordinator. Don't think so. Maybe Jim Knowles at some point. Wilson, I don't think so. He's mostly Oklahoma, Indiana. Those guys aren't going to see Georgia ever. So it's good to get them first. Nevada, your thoughts on that? Is it a benefit to get the Georgia Bulldogs first instead of Michigan, which some people were hoping for?
No question. I mean, no question. If you have a chance to beat a Georgia team, you definitely have a better chance beating them coming off a long layoff, getting a chance where you've had a 3 weeks, 4 weeks to game plan for them and to really kind of pull things together. I think if you went the other way, your best possible outcome really was going to be beat Michigan, which I think we would have done, and then lose to Georgia. I think this way, you keep yourself. You've got a chip and a share and a chance to beat Georgia in the national championship game, and now you're looking for help from other schools that maybe have played Georgia tough. Maybe even schools reach out to you like Missouri, hint, and talk to you a little bit about what some of the things that they did against Georgia that kind of kept that game a little bit closer. So I think Ohio State's casting a wide net, looking for some thoughts regarding the best way to scheme against these guys, and it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. But yeah, you definitely want to get them first, and playing them down there, it's going to be tough. But Ohio State will represent. It's not like it's going to be a straight home game where they have 99% of the home crowd. I mean, Ohio State will have a good 30,000 people in that building, and they'll keep it active as well.
Yeah, I think that Atlanta, the people at the Peach Bowl are excited because they know that Ohio State folks travel really well. We haven't been to Atlanta in a long time. This isn't like the Fiesta Bowl or the Rose Bowl where we've been numerous times. Like we haven't been to Atlanta in 30-ish years. So I think that it's gonna be an exciting game. I think that again, we have to play within ourselves. It's like you look at LSU threw for 500 yards against them in the last game they played. Now, granted, a lot of that was in garbage time, but that's still 500 yards. It's still gonna, you had a receiver go 5 for 120 and a touch. You had a receiver go 6 for 107 and a touch. 500 yards is 500 yards. So, that secondary is something that can be thrown on. Again, LSU is coming from behind, but obviously I think we've got a much better throwing game than LSU does. And I think that, for guys like Paris and DeWand and Luke Whippler and Matt Jones, guys that are likely to go on to the NFL after this year, this is a huge opportunity. You're going to be going against the best front. This will be the game that the NFL scouts will watch. They'll watch this in Michigan. Those are your 2 games that they're going to watch. They're not going to watch against Arkansas State or, Antarctica or some of these other teams we play. But what an opportunity for these guys, man. And I think you still got to try to run the ball. I think that something that Ryan has been terrible about is he just, he gives up on the running game too quick, and I think you just have to keep feeding these guys because, it's something where just because it's not perfect, I think that the body blows add up. And it's like Michigan at half had 10 yards against us. And then all of a sudden in the second half, they just exploded because they beat the shit out of us. And it's like, once they beat you down so much, eventually, the pipe bursts and the pipe for us bursts, and it was in the form of a few big plays. And, those D linemen, they don't like getting double teamed. They don't like getting hammered by 315-pound guys coming off the rock. No D lineman on earth likes playing the run. And conversely, no offensive lineman on earth likes to pass protect. Everybody likes, O linemen like to run block, D linemen like to pass rush. So it's like, help your O lineman out, especially early in the game, man. Like, take some of the air out of the balloon. I still think that it's going to be a heavy Georgia crowd. I just, from playing in that LSU game, I remember how loud it was, when LSU did anything. So, you just got to anticipate that. It is what it is. It's a short drive. I think that we'll have a lot of Buckeye faithful, but I think there's a contingent that's worried that we're going to get smoked and it's going to be a blowout. So they're not spending the dollars to go down to Atlanta. So I think that, the guys got to be ready to treat it like they're going into Moscow for Rocky IV against Ivan Drago. Like, that's kind of what it's going to be like. So, Nevada, what are your thoughts? If you're Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson coming up with a game plan, how do you start this game off versus the Georgia defense?
Well, it's a great question because, I guess I could argue it either way with equal enthusiasm, but, the bottom line is you got to run your best plays. And I think, with Day, what I've been critical of him of is, when defensive has been presented opportunities for you to run, I think you've got to take the run and don't force the pass into it. And conversely, if they're taking away the run for you and they're daring you to pass the ball on them, then I think you've got to pass the ball on them. So I think I guess I'd look to see what the Georgia defense is giving you, and you've got to attack it that way. Most importantly, though, is I'd go fast. I would go fast. I'd run tempo against Georgia. I think it's a big advantage. I think Ohio State's offense runs best when it runs fast. I think that's a huge advantage to run against the Georgia defense where you got big guys that can get tired. I know that involves Ryan Day not having him look over the sideline and trying to get that perfect play that he wants to so badly to call. But that's what I would do. I'd come out. I'd make my decision based upon what I'm seeing. If they're playing that too high look with the safeties back, I'd be running. If they're playing single high, I'd be passing. And I'd go fast. I'd have one-word calls. I'd run them, and I'd let the chips fall where they may.
I think, when there's noise and when there's an amped up crowd and the world's kind of against you, I think that's a great strategy. We did that against Arkansas in 2010. Jim Tressel, this is before no huddle spread was super in vogue, and we had one word for every play. I didn't play in that game, but I was coaching, and we shredded Arkansas to start the game. They had no idea how to, they were out of gas. And again, when you haven't shown no huddle all year and then you do it, teams aren't ready for it. They don't prepare for it. Like for instance, with Urban, when we were getting ready to play Oregon, and Oregon was like hyper speed, fastest team in the country in terms of running plays. He had guys on the team lose weight. He had, the D linemen all lost 10, 15 pounds to get ready for that game. So that they'd be fresher, they'd be lighter, they wouldn't be as gassed. And like that, I remember I was with you that first drive of the Oregon game in Mariota. I was like, holy shit, man, these guys might score 100 points on us. They walked down the field in like 8 plays, and it was like they were on air. Like our defense wasn't even out there. And then, the game kind of settled down, and then obviously we took advantage of them and we just out physicaled them from there. But that first drive, I was like, oh my God, this might not be good for the Buckeyes. But I think that, with CJ, the key is, man, you got to get him comfortable early, man. You got it. Nice, easy throws. I think that, some nice, easy, like I love any sort of horizontal handoff to Mecca, orbit, the jet orbit sweep, where they motion him in, orbit motion handoff. Like he's a guy that has that ability, like a running back, to carry the ball. He's a returner. He's not scared. I think, if it's up to me, I'd engineer 15 to 20 touches for a Mecca, because I think he's the guy that can do it. He's the guy that needs to be fed, and just get CJ going early. Like you don't have to throw these long, slow developing things where he could potentially get sacked or hit and supercharge the Georgia crowd. I think you just got to throw some nice, easy stuff. You got to trust Marvin. And for the sake of God, if we get into the red zone and we have 15 plays and we don't have a single play designed for Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know if you're allowed to be called a guru anymore, because we played Michigan, 15 plays, nothing for Marvin Harrison Jr., who's the best receiver in the country, maybe the best receiver in school history. And he's also a gigantic, and he can moss people. Like, Nevada, your thoughts on that? Before I get to flummox, your thoughts on...
I think some of that's taking what they give you. Other teams know that you want to go to Marvin Harrison in that situation as well. And when they're bracketing him, you don't want to force the ball into a guy's there. But I'd have to go back and look. I think the bottom line is in the red zone, I hate to go back to what we talked about before, but you've got to run the quarterback sometimes. You've got to, that's the one way to equate numbers, and one way to gain a numerical advantage is running the quarterback and doing some things with that. But yeah, you've got to figure out a way to manufacture touches for Marvin, whether that's putting him in motion, putting him in the slot, putting him put him in the backfield and run him out of the backfield the way that Alabama did with Devontae Smith. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it if you're clever, that you get your guy to the matchup that you want in the situation that you want, around the goal line. And I have not seen that creativity. We saw a little bit of that creativity earlier in the year when they were doing some stuff featuring Cade Stover. But our play calling around in the red zone this year has been pretty pedestrian, and as a result, our results have been pretty pedestrian, and we're going to have to be better. Do I think they will be? Yeah, I really think Ryan Day is going to let her rip in this game, and I may go down with the ship on this one, and may people go, oh, Nevada, you're wrong. I really think he's going to do that. I've talked to enough people. I've seen enough. I've heard enough. I really think he realizes that this is the time to let her rip, Tater Chip, and I think he's going to do that. And whether that is good enough to win the game or not, I'm not sure, but it won't be because we're tight or we're not letting it hang out. I think he's going to let it hang out.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, when you've got the world kind of beating you down because we lost at Michigan at home, we lost to Michigan at home for the first time since 2000. Like, you don't get opportunities like this in life where you have a chance to erase all of that negativity, all those hard feelings, all of that garbage that you've dealt with. Yeah, because you get to play Georgia, and again, this is a beatable Georgia team. Like, this is a team that Missouri had them on the ropes. I mean, honestly, they remind me a lot of LSU. I mean, LSU lost to Kentucky, for God's sakes, and then we couldn't beat them, for the national title. But, they can play down a little bit. But when they play up, they are ferocious, just like that LSU team was. So they played up that night. We played them, and we played a C- game. They played probably a B+ game, and they beat us because they had better players than we did. But, this Georgia team is very beatable. I mean, like I said, the last game they played, they gave up 500 yards in the air, and our strength is throwing the ball. Now, I think that, a lot of that was probably, garbage time dump offs, whatever. But, I think, you got to stick to the running game a little bit. I think you got to, you need your running backs to show up. You need Trey Henderson to show up. You need Mayan to show up. You need to feel those guys a little bit because those guys could change the game if they just, get in there and do their thing. We got about 4 minutes left. Any final questions? I really, this has been fantastic, guys. Thank you guys so much. We got 230 people watching right now. Thank you guys on your Sunday night. I know you guys have probably been watching football all day. We're on the boards all day on BuckeyeScoop.com. This is something I want to get your opinions on. Nevada, we are going to make Keenan Bailey our tight ends coach. He might get a recruiting coordinator tag as well. A lot of times the tight ends coach handles that. They haven't done that as much now that we have a full-time recruiting staff, like a recruiting liaison type. Your thoughts on that as Kevin Wilson heads off to Tulsa? Keenan is a guy that is maybe the most talked about off the field coach of all time. I've never heard of a guy that gets talked about more with recruits and whatever. He's been with the program for 8 or 9 years. Started off as an intern, then a QC, a GA, quality control. He's had about every role in the building, and now he's going to be a full-time coach. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think just from a recruiting standpoint, forget the game planning, forget anything else. Let's just talk recruiting. It's absolutely a plus for Ohio State because he's considered an A+ recruiting type, a guy that's really been able to be of assistance with these recruits. The recruits talk about him, even though he hasn't been in a full-time recruiting role. And frankly, we weren't getting anything out of Kevin Wilson from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, Kevin was more of a elder statesman, game planning guy. Great coach, glad to have him. But strictly from a recruiting standpoint, this is additive. So as recruiting is the lifeblood of the organization, from that standpoint, it's definitely a plus. Now, but we'll have to look at the other things in terms of, does this mean that Hartline gets the offensive coordinator role? Does this mean that Hartline's calling plays? How does that work with Ryan Day? How does the offense for Ohio State look going forward? Those questions are all yet to be determined. But just from a recruiting standpoint, Keenan's an absolute A+ hire for Ohio State, and very excited about it from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see if they promote Brian to offensive coordinator or Justin Fry. Justin Fry was the offensive coordinator at UCLA, so he has done it before. But with Ryan Day as head coach, it's just kind of a figurehead title. You're not going to call the plays. Ryan's going to call the plays like he has the last, since what? When did he get here? In 18, 17? So, I mean, Ryan's been calling the plays for a while now. He's not giving that up anytime soon. I think Keenan, he's a South Florida kid. So he's got inroads down there. I think that, it's an interesting hire. I think that he's really talented. I've talked to people that I really trust, associated with Ohio State and not associated with Ohio State. He's turned out some pretty significant jobs, big schools, big programs, big money, based upon Ryan Day's promising to make him a full-time coach here. So, I mean, he's done his time and he's here. And, Yeah, but it's been interesting. Like since Ryan has taken over, we've promoted Corey Dennis from within, Brian Hartline from within, and Keenan from within now. So I mean, those are guys that went from being interns or quality control coaches to being full-time coaches. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before, because generally, if a coordinator job opens up at Ohio State, there's a national search, interview a couple guys, bring a guy in. And that can be good and bad. Mike Yursich didn't work out. He was here for 1 year with Ryan in 19. Then he went off to Texas. Now he's at Penn State. Nevada, to wrap this thing up, your thoughts on hiring guys from within that are known quantities, speak your language, know the playbook, know the culture, versus bringing in new blood, or, it's a guy that might not know your culture, might have to learn your offense, might have to have different ideas, different concepts. Pros and cons to that, in your perspective.
Well, the pros are all the things that you mentioned, like you said, familiarity, loyalty, Ryan wanting to have his own guys. Those are all the pros. The cons are, you ask yourself, would Nick Saban do that? And the answer is absolutely not. He would not do it. And Nick Saban's been the most successful head coach in college football maybe ever. So, his thing has always been the polar opposite. It's been, I'll take the best coaches that I can from anywhere. I don't care if I get them for 1 year or 2 years, whatever it is. I don't care if this is a way station. They're going to be great when they're here, and we're going to win games. So it's definitely a different approach. I could argue, either way, because Keenan's our guy, and that's the reality. I'm going to be super excited about it and optimistic about it, because not being optimistic about it doesn't serve any purpose. And I have heard enough good things. I mean, it is uncanny how many people have come out of the woodwork to go to tell me, hey, Nevada, this guy is really, really a top-notch recruiter, and really a guy that's going to, help us out a lot on the recruiting trail. So I've heard that enough to certainly piqued my attention, and certainly has got me excited about the prospects of him hitting the recruiting trail full time.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be interesting. Ryan's, he's making all these hires from internally. Obviously Brian Hartline, Corey Dennis has done great, fantastic recruiter. Keenan Bailey, I think he'll fall right in line with those two. But they're all guys on offense, so that's always kind of interesting because, will these guys really push Ryan? Push comes to shove, on new ideas, or are they just going to kind of do as Ryan likes? I mean, again, it's good and bad to everything, because there's a lot of coaches I know that have hired guys that they had a great interview, they bring them in, and they end up being absolute disasters, and they last for a year, and then you're back at square one. Where with Keenan, he's a guy who's been severely loyal. He's very talented. He's like, and again, he's turned down some really good jobs. So sometimes you kind of evaluate these guys based on what other programs have come after him, how much money has been thrown at him, and have they stayed here? And Keenan has been very loyal, and Ryan rewarded him. As Kevin goes out to Tulsa, I'm sure Kevin likely would have reached out to Keenan and made him an offer. And it's gonna be fascinating to see if Kevin takes anybody from the staff. I know he's got a really deep tree from his time in Indiana, his time at Oklahoma. It'd be interesting to see how his staff comes together over the next few weeks. So with that being said, Nevada, any parting news? We're going to do this again at 7:00 tomorrow. We're going to tape our podcast live. We love the input from you guys. We love your questions. We appreciate you guys so much for being on here. Nevada, any closing thoughts out of you?
No, just to thanks everybody for, as you mentioned earlier, you set new records for YouTube, for views, for subscribers. And it's just all because of the great people. And we love the involvement. It makes these live shows so much fun. And just a sincere thank you for all the great support this whole year and through this bowl prep. And it makes every day fun being out here. So thanks to everybody.
All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. It is getting late. We appreciate you guys so much. If you could, on your way out the door, bang that like button, hit subscribe. We appreciate you guys. Those make a huge difference. They take 1 second to do. That little thumbs up, as silly as it is, it does a lot for our video. So thank you guys so much. Comment down below. What names do you want to hear about in bowl prep during the next 3 weeks? These next 2 are going to be critical, huge days. Everyone's on, all hands on deck. It is grind time for these guys. It's grind time for these players, grind time for these coaches. Eat your Wheaties and get ready to go It's like 300 versus the Persians, man. You're going down into Georgia, man, and it is going to be hell on wheels for playing those Georgia Bulldogs. But hey, this is what you live for. This is when you have kind of the world against you and you have this massive opportunity. What else could you want in life if you are an Ohio State football Buckeye player or coach or fan? So we appreciate you guys as always. So we are going to go live on BuckeyeScoop.com on our message boards right now. So I'm heading over there. Appreciate you guys as always. We're going to do our live podcast again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys tune in. Thank you guys for the super chats. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for the questions. You guys are the best. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. You guys are the best. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your night and a great day tomorrow. Go Bucks.